Human Dynamics resilience programs are designed to empower leaders, energize teams, and create organizations that not only withstand pressure but excel through it. Let's work together to build resilience that drives performance and lasting growth.
Okay, good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Leeann Dio from Human Dynamic Philippines. And in Human Dynamic, our mission is to build resilience, enhance wellness, and develop sustainability. And with this mission, we develop dynamic dialogues where we have real conversations with leaders building resilient workforces. And I'm honored and happy to reconnect with Sir Rhon Go for this episode. And before we dive into the dialogue, let me briefly introduce Sir Ron. So, Sir Ron is the AVP for Corporate Planning and Strategy in his current company, bringing nearly 20 years of leadership experience in the BPO industry. He has led large scale global operations across trust and safety, KYC, AI operations, banking, fintech, and customer experience, supporting teams throughout China, Latin America, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia Pacific, such as Indonesia, Thailand, and Vietnam. His work focuses on building operational resilience through scalable delivery models, disciplined growth, employee engagement, and customer centric transformation. Sir Ron also holds a master's degree in Continental Philosophy, a background that informs his approach to leadership empowerment, problem solving, and navigating the human impact of AI. He is an active contributor to industry initiatives and volunteers with IBPAP's Business Continuity Planning pillar. Sir Ron, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Kamusta, Sir Ron?
Hi, Leanne. It's very nice connecting with you again, and I'm so happy to be featured in Human Dynamic. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, it is pretty rainy right now, but I'm glad that despite this, we're still able to have real conversations like this. So happy, very, very happy to be here.
Thank you, Sir Ron. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts about operational resilience, especially considering your background, Sir Ron. I'm sure the leaders who will be joining us, specifically those from the BPO and even IT BPM industry, right, will be looking forward to your insights. So let me go straight to our first question, Sir Ron. So you mentioned that your career has moved from traditional call center management toward what you call operational resilience. So what would you say have shifted for you, and what does a resilient workforce look like for you in a high pressure work environment?
Wow. That's a pretty that's a mouthful
It is.
from right when I was like thinking about it. It's that's a really tough question, but yeah, in light of and it sounds such a lot. It sounds such like a long time now. Yeah, nearing 20 years in the
Yeah.
industry. Actually, even before this, I also myself taught in the university
Mm,
in my hometown in Baguio. But anyway, so since then, right after the academe, I jumped straight away to the corporate world, not knowing really what was in it for me. So that I think was one of the most uncertain periods of my life. But I'm glad that I took that leap of faith. And that actually is drawn from one of my favorite thinkers. His name is Soren Kierkegaard, and he
Mm.
said something like the leap of faith. But anyway, so going to your question, no, when I started out in operations, success was measured by predictability, and we had like statistical tools to measure variance, and then end of the day, just how to minimize that variance. That's what we wanted to do. um, our biggest focus was on meeting service levels, diba? Managing attrition, hitting productivity targets, also making sure that from a quality standpoint, you don't veer away too much. And of course, end of the day, that's just really saying, how do we keep operations stable? So what changed is that the world has become, oh my goodness, far less predictable. I'm not sure who said it, but this was a buzzword in the past, like a VUCA world. So it's uh, our world right now is really vulnerable and really uncertain, no? But I think right now, with the rise of social media, everyone's just more aware of how uncertain and how fragile our world is. With geopolitics that's going on, the world indeed has become far less predictable. So over the last decade, we've seen pandemics, geopolitical disruptions, talent shortages, especially the rise of AI, and then right now and this is on top of rapidly changing client expectations. This is
Mhm.
this is the bedrock of what we do in operations. So I realized that operational resilience alone is no longer enough. So let me focus on that. No, operational excellence alone is no longer enough. What matters right now is operational resilience, which is the ability to adapt and continue performing even and despite of the conditions changing. So let me take a step back. A little bit of etymology. No, resilience came from the word salary, and then salary means to bounce back. So salary is also the root word of the word salient. So when you say it's a salient point, it's a point that jumps out, it
Mhm.
leaps out. So re re meaning bounce to do it again. So it's a bouncing back, no? So operational resilience is no longer just being excellent for like a sustained amount of time, but the world right now, no matter how unpredictable, there will be opportunities and times where you will be bogged down, but then it's your ability to rise back up. And that's what resilience means. So to me, a resilient workforce isn't one that never struggles. No, it's the one that can absorb how and how the world changes and then recover quickly. So, what does that look like day to day? Employees continuously learn new skills rather than relying on just a single capability. And this is why we're so big on the industry is so big in terms of reskilling and then upskilling
Yeah.
and just veering away from being complacent. Second, leaders communicate honestly, and the changes. Sorry, leaders communicate honestly about changes instead of pretending uncertainty doesn't exist. The amount and the courage of leaders to say, you know what, this is what the future looks like. So it's really about painting what vision of the future you'd like without being so. Of course, we don't want to be the people who's going to the harbingers of doom. No, we don't want to be that. But
Mhm.
instead, what kind of realistic picture can we paint for our employees and for our organizations in general? I have 2 points, last 2 points. So, operational resilience also means that teams have enough psychological safety to raise issues early. So, why is that a measure of resilience? At least for me, no. Communication is always part of because any business is always people business, and if people the social currency is always about trust. So if there's no psychological safety between leaders and employees, there won't be enough time for you to take stock of what is happening and take a look forward. So you won't have time to do that because um, if people don't feel safe, they won't open up to you, no?
Yeah.
And finally, processes are designed to adapt when client demands shift. And I think this is what I've
Mhm.
learned so far, especially when I was with a Chinese company, and then also opening in various geographies. It's about our ability. So yes, if it's a greenfield area, there's no processes there. Of course, you have to build on the ground, no. But then how your ability to document that these processes so that moving forward when you launch in a different site you have that guiding principle so that you're able to still continue on with your legacy of leadership but still being aware of what is local and what is and I think we're going to touch on this later
Yes.
what is local and how they themselves express these principles in their own culture. So that's a pretty also long answer, but I hope that
Yes.
I drove a point in terms of what the operational resilience means.
Yes, it's very in-depth, Sir Ron, and I like what you said about hyper-localization, but making sure that
Mm,
it also adapts well across markets and even across industries, or maybe even what the client demands. I
mm,
also admire what you mentioned and shared about your personal experience in your career, taking that leap of faith from the academe into the corporate, because it's such a big change also. And
yes,
what you mentioned, right, about VUCA, it's actually now banning, and I'm sure pretty soon there will be
right.
a new term,
There's
right?
going to be
Because
another term, yeah.
I'm sure because of all the changes. And what you were saying about the need to reskill and upskill, I think that's also something that has been going on for quite some time. But I
Mm,
think the challenge comes wherein the employee or the teams cannot actually have the capacity and the bandwidth given the everyday struggles or challenges um, that they have on their plate. And I think this is where the leadership communication comes in, how the leaders will be able to communicate transparently and paint that realistic picture, making sure that they communicate the need, right, to
mm,
really reskill and upskill.
true.
So we can go, Saron, to what you mentioned about the hyperlocalization, because your experience, it spanned across various markets. And I think it's it's very insightful if you get to share with us how you are able to, when you're trying to stabilize delivery and drive retention across so many different cultures and pressures, what usually holds it together from your experience?
When okay, so this question to me is very personal because I myself went to different geographies to launch different sites. One of my mentors, no, she without realizing it, I come from a very small town here in the Philippines. It's called Baguio City, and I was a country boy. You know, I'm like a province sort of guy. Didn't really, so I only went to Manila in my childhood years, only for summer vacations, right? But then it's only for a stretch of 2 weeks. Very, very local. But then all of a sudden, when I came to Manila, it's such a big world, and then all of a sudden I was thrust into different geographies all of a sudden. So my biggest move from Baguio to Manila eventually spanned to going to the US, going to Canada, learning how operations um, was being run by these multinational companies. Eventually I had the chance to open sites here in the Philippines in Tarlac, and then in CDO, and then I did also visit Davao, and then Iloilo, and then all of a sudden I was thrust to Indonesia to open a site. I didn't even realize that there's. I thought Jakarta
Mm-hmm.
is a word, but then Yogyakarta, they call it Jogjakarta locally, and I'm like, okay, there's a different Jakarta. It's Jogjakarta, and I didn't realize it's a more bustling place. It feels like Baguio, not the weather, but the culture. And then I opened sites in Thailand and then Vietnam, and then I went to China. I didn't even dream of going there, but suddenly the hand of fate just led me there. And then so yeah, experiencing such a multifaceted workforce really opened my eyes as to what does it mean to be a globally competitive company or organization. So one lesson I learned, Leanne, no, from managing teams across I even flew to Latin America at one point in my life, just to open a site in Brazil,
Mhm.
or was it Peru? I think it was Peru. I also led sites in Europe, in Romania, and then in Turkey, in the Middle East. We have in my two different companies, we opened sites in Egypt, and also in Asia, in Southeast Asia. So, um, so what everyone wants really is respect, no, clarity, growth, meaningful work, and finally, what grounds it all is good leadership. So these things, no matter how abstract they are, they travel everywhere. What doesn't travel perfectly, and this is what I personally have experienced, no, are the ways people experience them and how people express them. For example, recognition in one country may be highly public. So we're such so here in the Philippines, because we're so Western, we're like, oh, we want to be able to praise in public, right? And then you
Mhm.
reprimand in private. But then in China, yes, it's also true. They want to be praised in public, but then there's a very different nuance when even if you're being reprimanded privately, so I'll take the flip side of recognition. When you're being reprimanded privately, the concept of, even if it's just the both of you might think that you're going to be shouted at, etc. No, but then there's still this concept of face. The concept of the face, which is in Chinese they call it mianzi. It's not the face like literal. It's more, how do you want to be seen? So how and are you saving face, or are you losing face, even if it's just the both of you? So these two are very, to me, are these two cultures express being reprimanded very differently. But then, why are you being reprimanded? It could be for the same thing, for some error, but then the expression is very different. Um, so let's take another example. For example, communication styles are very vary significantly. In my going 20 years in operational leadership, 5 years have been spent with Chinese leadership, and the communication styles are very different. So, we're in operations, you're technically awake, not really awake, you're technically online, right? 24/7. But then being online 24/7, working with a Chinese company, it took a very different shape for me. And I'm like, even my boss calls me at around 9, 10 p.m. So not to say that my boss doesn't call me 9, 10 p.m. when I was working with a Western company. It's just that the speed by which the Chinese want communication to happen, they want it always yesterday. They're talking to you about it now, but they always wanted it yesterday, right? So that's how fast they want communication to happen. And then finally, expectations around hierarchy and then decision making, they always vary. So of course, there's respect for leadership, no, in both the Western and then in the Eastern cultures, but the expectation for leaders in the Western world is, go ahead and challenge me so that I can learn from you. But then here, when you're talking to Chinese, especially not only just Chinese, but even Japanese, for example, when you're speaking to them, the concept of hierarchy is very different. So the leaders always speak last. And Simon Sinek has that book, right? Leaders
Mhm.
eat last. But in the East, this has been the tradition for a very long time. But both worlds are actually saying, I need you to respect leadership, right? But they're expressed in very different ways.
Mhm.
So to me, the concepts stay, they travel across the world. However, the expressions are the ones that vary significantly. So the principle does remain global, but then the expression must be local. So, um, the takeaway here is what I found the most successful organizations to have is that they're very consistent on values and outcomes, but then they're very flexible in how they achieve it. So it's like the why. So the how becomes easy if you know the why, right? So the how can be a lot of different ways as long as the value, sorry, the why is clear to the people who you want working for, right, and working towards. If we want to if we try to force one management style everywhere, we lose people, and I've seen that happen a lot of times. Now, on the flip side, the other extreme is if we customize everything, we lose consistency. So now, operation going back to operational resilience, that balance has to be something that is what is the common purpose, but we have to respect local realities. So that to me is how I would answer your questions.
So beautifully put, Sir Ron. And it reminds me of the saying, the end justify the means somehow, right? Keeping um, clear vision of what your values are and the
Mm,
outcome we want to achieve. But I think what I specifically like the most, Sir Ron, is what you mentioned about what remains constant across globally competitive teams, because that's what we want for the Filipino workforce, right? To continue
right.
to build the talent and make sure that the Filipino talent travels the same across other global competitive teams. And that's where you mentioned respect, clarity, growth, and I think most importantly, meaningful work, because everyone
Mhm,
wants meaningful work, and how it's under that leadership umbrella, how
mhm,
leaders play a vital role in communicating and making sure that these values are fostered in that culture.
right.
I think also, Sir Ron, it also shows how um, culturally intelligent you are, being
That's too much.
thrown across
Yes,
various
yes, thrown,
markets.
yes.
Yeah. And then it takes really such adjustment, grit, resilience, not just emotionally, but also even physically,
Oh, yeah.
intellectually,
Oh,
right? And even
yeah. Sleeping
socially.
in airports. Can you imagine?
Yes. It's so diverse, and
Mm.
the amount of adjustment that you did. Maybe you can share from that experience, Ron, and how it has shaped. And I'm anchoring this one to your background in Masters in Continental Philosophy, right? Because being a leader in operational resilience and having that experience, and maybe if we throw in your experience in the academe, that's such a rare background for the role that you currently have. So, what do you think has helped you, or what grew in you given all those background?
Ah, among the three questions that you asked, this is what I like the most.
Ah,
Because philosophy has always been ingrained in me. um so people, like you said, no, it's a little bit rare. People are often surprised when they hear that I studied philosophy because they associate operations with metrics and efficiency. Maybe a person from economics, or management, which is a science rather than an art. Even when I took my master's, it's an MA, it's not an MS. So it's Master of Arts in Philosophy. It's never a science. So it's very tough for people to like say how does that marry, right? Um, but you know what? Philosophy has actually been one of the most useful. I'm not gonna say tools, but uh, I'm gonna say perspective that I've ever had, which I think I've never lost. Um, in my background, so coming from the academe, but still being able to carry that in the corporate world, philosophy teaches you to ask deeper questions. No, um, something like, what problem are we trying to solve, really? So this is there's already a science for that. They call it the 5 why analysis, right? Or the fishbone diagram or the Ishikawa diagram, right? So, but to me, it's a very simple question. What problem are we really trying to solve? Is this really the problem or is there something deeper than that? So to me, I don't even need that framework. I just need that question. It has to be a burning question for me. The other would be, what assumptions are we making? So a lot of times, um, errors are made because of assumptions. No, there's a little bit of I'm not sure if you're going to edit this out, no, but the word assume is spelled as ASSUME. So if you assume, you make an
Mm.
out of you and me. So, so this to me struck out. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what philosophy is about. So if we just feel our assumptions, and then that's when we start seeing what situation we're really in. Also, what does progress actually mean? Um, the word actually has been thrown a lot like filler, but then when we in philosophy ask the question, what does it really mean? What does progress actually mean? So it really it makes you step back and you go like, did we really make any progress at all? So it's not questioning where you are, it's about, okay, so we got here, but how did we get here? And what are the good things that we did so that we can replicate it, so that we can come to the same place moving forward, going back to operational resilience, right? But I think to me, the biggest question, that I have been bringing all throughout my career is, what is uniquely human? And to me, and I'm going to jump a little bit off tangent, but speaking about the workforce as well. So as AI becomes more capable, and more ubiquitous, no, these questions that I just shared. What problem are we trying to solve? What assumptions are we making? What does progress actually mean? And what is uniquely human? These become even more important in the light of AI. The future really isn't a competition between humans and machines. And I think when you come to this, when you're faced with this reality, and then you come with, it's a competition between humans and machines, you're already on the losing ground. Machines will increasingly handle, it is inevitable, no, but the perspective that we should take is that machines will increasingly handle all of these routine tasks. And the differentiator, and this is where we as humans come in, no, and this is why I love humans in the loop.
Mhm.
um the differentiator for humans will always be judgment, creativity, empathy, ethics, and the ability to find meaning and complexity. So I think these things, even if you like ask Gemini or ChatGPT or OpenAI, all of these questions, no, they can regurgitate whatever it is that humans have already made, because we've uploaded trillions of files to these LLMs. But then in my own work, I have to judge whether or not AI is telling me something that's right. And there's always that little caveat, right? Whenever an LLM responds to you, it says AI can make mistakes. You go
Mhm.
like, okay, I thought this is it, but apparently it's not. So yeah. Also in leadership, no, philosophy reminds me that people are not resources to be optimized. They are unique individuals trying to build meaningful lives through work. AI may change the jobs, but it shouldn't diminish human dignity. And this is the principle, no, as a leader, that I try to carry into every decision. You see how I fell in love with that question?
Yes. And I took so many points, Sir Ron. I don't know where to begin. But I would
Okay.
like to highlight what you mentioned about really the importance of judgment, creativity, ethics, right? Meaning, drawing out
Mm,
complexity, and also what you mentioned about AI can improve work or change jobs or their role, but it shouldn't diminish human dignity. And I think that's what can often be or most likely be lost, especially as
mm,
things get hyper complex and hyper automated, Sir Ron. But thank you for sharing your personal experience and your personal affinity to philosophy. I think any person um, will be able to relate to those things that you mentioned, talking about what problems are we trying to solve and what
mm.
assumptions do we actually make. Because in my conversations with leaders, Sir Ron, sometimes the culture does not allow hard questions to be asked or
Yeah.
difficult
Yeah.
truths to be put out in the open. But hopefully, hearing you now, leaders listening to you now would be
I
encouraged
hope so.
to
I
put
hope so.
out these things, right?
Right.
So when we continue on to the topic of AI, Sir Ron, you sit in the committee of DTI on AI, right? So in this committee and in your experience and in your current role, what worries you most about AI and what are you most hopeful for in AI helping the Filipino workforce?
Wow. It's such a deeply rooted question in terms of the industry where we're in. I've been an active participant in CXAP. It used to be called CCAP, or the Call Center Association of the Philippines. Um, and then I'm also an active member of IBPAP, which is the ITBPM, association really of ITBPM here in the Philippines. And then also I'm a member of PAIBA, which is the Philippine Association of is specific to AI, and all of these are volunteer work, and I have the great opportunity to be part of like a participating member in the DTI, representing the CXAP as well as the IBPAP. So yeah, there's a lot of new standards that are upcoming, ISO standards even. So DTI has a very specific department. It's called the Bureau of Philippine Standards, and I'm part of the working group, the working committee, um, specific to how AI is being deployed, or how the IT BPM industry uses and deploys AI in the work that we do. So the most recent, we've now, as an industry, we've now employed over a million, 1.8 million workers here in the Philippines, and we plan to grow even further. No, we have IBPAP has launched the 2028 roadmap. The worst case scenario is just we're going to be under 2M, but the best case scenario is around 2.1, 2.3M. So if anything, the call center industry, to me, the industry that I work in right now, really is seeing such a huge, we're very realistic in terms of what is happening. There are some job cuts, right, etc., but then we're still very optimistic, and that's why we're able to forecast an even better growth. So let me go to your question in terms of something that really struck me, because the question is, what worries me the most about in the rise of AI, and how it impacts the Filipino workforce. So what worries me the most is complacency. The risk is not that AI suddenly eliminates all of the jobs tomorrow. It's not that. The risk is that our organizations and the individuals who lead out these organizations, and even the individuals themselves, underestimate how quickly skill requirements will change. So many tasks that were previously considered secure are now being automated. I read a couple of Channel News Asia articles. No, this is Media Corp in Singapore. They're say even BBC reported this. Some of the Filipino workers are saying, I'm like digging my own grave because I'm teaching an LLM how to become a translator, how to optimize the corporate communication, right? So, and then how to create newsletters that's specific to our brand. Um, all of a sudden, they got laid off. So, after 3 months of that little project, they got laid off. So yeah, many of these tasks will change, but then the word change, no, can also be thought of as augmentation. So if we wait until disruption is visible, then we're already behind. Now, what gives me hope, and I think as a nation, no. I also sit in the IBPAP BCP, or the Business Continuity Council. We've always heard how the Filipino workforce has been resilient. We know for the past 20 years, how many typhoons have struck, how many earthquakes have struck. We've heard of devastation left and right, no. But then what still gives me hope is the adaptability of the Filipino workforce. I myself have been to um, uh, the homes of our agents who have been ravished by the floods.
Mhm.
We help them out, and then ask for how the company can help. So to me, seeing this reality, I've spent most of my career developing these people, and we Filipinos have consistently shown a very exceptional ability to learn, adjust, and thrive in changing environments. We've also evolved. We've seen evolution from the voice support to now complex customer experience work, and then now we're in the knowledge service, we're in analytics. I didn't even know that I was in analytics, but then here we are. And then right now, digital operations. So I believe that the next chapter will also be similar. The winners won't be those who resist AI. Unfortunately, the
Mhm.
winners will be those who learn how to work alongside it. And the Philippines has a very, very good opportunity to move up the value chain. And this is what we as an industry believe, from performing tasks to solving problems.
Again, very insightful answer to the question earlier, Sir Ron.
Thank
And
you.
I like what you mentioned about yung complacency. And I think it's slowly becoming visible, right? As more and more employees rely on AI, that we
Mm,
can catch slips here and there with a continuous reliance on AI. But of course, at the same time, it's the need that we want them to comply with, right? So I guess this is again where the leadership comes in, surround the
mm,
responsible and ethical use of AI,
right.
not
Yes.
completely relying on AI and still making sure that we value judgment, creativity, and innovation alongside working with AI. So we can go to the last question, and I'll relate this to what you mentioned, Sir Ron, about the exceptional adaptability of Filipinos, because I think even if, and it's a beautiful capacity that as Filipinos we are known to be resilient and adaptable, but it doesn't of course erase the everyday challenges, right?
Of
And then
course.
all these natural disasters and all these other challenges in the Philippines. So in terms of probably I think in retention, engagement, it's still quite hard to manage during these times. So what do you think, Sir Ron, would be ways or approach that can help teams stay motivated and human-centered despite their resistance or the uncertainty that AI brings?
Okay. Um, Relatively tough question to let me digest.
Yes.
um, Actually, I can tie this to the most recent um, uh, assembly that I had with call center CXAP, the Call Center Association of the Philippines. Um, so I've learned that uncertainty is usually more damaging than the change itself.
Mm.
So what do I mean? When people don't know what's happening, they fill in the blanks with the fear. So the jobs of leaders sometimes no avoiding difficult leaders sometimes avoid difficult conversations because they want to protect morale. Now, in my experience, that often creates more anxiety, more fear, and more um, resignation. Not like resignation from the
Yeah.
company, but more, you
Resigned.
know, more resigned feeling. No, so to me, what always worked, but you have to have a level of, how do you say this, diplomacy.
Mm.
What really works well is transparency. So I tell teams three things. No, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the world is changing. We know that, right? Some jobs and tasks will change because of AI, and we've seen this. And we will have a better future if and when we learn and adapt. So the capacity to learn, the capacity to ask questions. I'll go back to philosophy. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. Sophia, Philiin, right? And then Sophia meaning wisdom. When you love to learn, then you become more curious to, okay, this is where I'm at right now. You can choose to be resigned and lie flat, or you can say, you know what, I need to pick myself back up and then try to think of a way how to not get redundant. How do I make myself more relevant, right? So the capacity to ask that question, no, the courage to ask curious questions like those, I think is what keeps me hopeful that the Filipino workforce will continue to thrive. Um, in my experience, also people do not need false reassurance. What they
Mm-hmm.
need is a realistic path forward. The most engaged teams really, at least from the ones that I've led, no, were not the teams that felt safe from change. I did not protect them from change. I go like, you, we have to change, and I'll be the first person who's going to be charging ahead, and we're gonna say, you know what, come at me. So these teams, they were actually the teams that felt capable of navigating it with me. And I think this is the legacy that we want to start building, no, for the future workforce. Ultimately, Leanne, motivation comes from hope, comes from growth. And if employees believe that they can learn and then contribute and then remain relevant despite everything that's happening, they're far more likely to embrace change rather than fear it.
Wow, Sir Ron. I think that's the best way to end the dialogue, Sir Ron. But what I took note of that is how you really modeled this behavior of being able to courageously face the change and not be as resigned as you've mentioned. And
Mm,
I also like what you mentioned about how uncertainty is more damaging than the change
mm,
itself, and how
true.
some leaders really do avoid difficult conversations
Mm,
and thus um, ultimately hurt the morale even more, what they were
mm.
trying to protect in the first place, right? So, with that, thank you, Sir Ron. Do you have a last message or encouraging words for the leaders joining us today?
Wow. Leanne, thank you for this opportunity for me to speak to you and then share the message and share my story. It's one of the many stories I think that I hope resonates with future leaders. So I'm not. It's a little bit unfortunate, no, that I can only speak for the industry that I am in, but um my one final takeaway, and I hope it doesn't just resonate for the industry that I work with, but for the entire for the workforce that they are or the industry that they are in. No, so the future of our industry will not be decided by the technology alone. It will be decided by how well we help people adapt, learn, thrive alongside this technology. AI may transform the work, but leadership remains fundamentally human. So that I think should wrap it up for me.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sir Ron. I hope that all the leaders will be able to have these takeaways with them as they go back to their work. So I really, really appreciate your time and what a beautiful sharing of your experience. Thank you, Sir Ron.
My
Goodbye,
pleasure. My
everyone.
pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.